Good morning, everybody. It's Stacey from edibletechguru.com. For those of you that have done a blue training with me, this view is going to look maybe familiar, but kind of backwards. And that's because I do my trainings over there and I do my working over here. So I actually cleared the decks and I got things ready for tonight. And one of the things I like to do is find other ways to do a thing. I don't know why, but it's just something in my brain gets a tickle whenever I go, okay, so here's how I do a thing. But what if I do it this way instead? Or what if I do it that way instead? And a lot of y'all know my story where Debbie refused to sell me a blue for a long, long time. And I had to find ways to accomplish the designs I wanted to do that I was seeing other blue owners create. And because of that, now when I'm working with my blue, I try to find ways to do things that, you know, God forbid my blue ever goes down, or if I'm trying to help someone with a technique that I would normally do on my blue, how can you do it otherwise? So what I had was some cupcakes. And this is like the last dredges of what was in my piping bag. So it's not the prettiest, but I had these cupcakes that I was getting ready for an Easter party last week. And I said to myself, boy, those are pretty, but they could be prettier. So what if I made some sprinkles to go with it? And I thought, okay, good. I'll just make up some royal icing and I'll put them in my dryer. I'll have them ready. And then life happened, and then procrastinating happened. So I came up with procrastinator sprinkles. And that's these little guys right here. So if you look at them, they're nice and they're thin and they're super easy to make. And I started cutting them out and making them. And I thought, well, now what would happen if my Cricut wasn't working? Or what would happen if my blue couldn't print on fondant? Because normally sprinkles like this, I would make out of a thin sheet of fondant, cut them out with my 3D printed cutters and go from there. And what I said to myself was, well, what's another way to do this? And I thought, well, we got plenty of Icing Images family out there that don't have blues, and what they have are just edible paper printers. I said, well, what if I just take some cute Easter designs and put them on a piece of edible paper and then start cutting them out? And I thought back to other lives where people were using punches, and I've got nothing against punches at all. So let me get that out of the way. Nothing against punches whatsoever. But I don't have the storage space to have a whole army of punchers. And because I am a procrastinator, I love doing 3D printed cutouts because I can use them for things. And I thought to myself, well, what if I used this as a punch? So while I'm talking, let me switch over and get my big blue going. That way you can see what I've got going on. And what I am doing is grabbing an icing sheet. So I have this pack of premium thins. And the thing I like about the premium thins is that's pretty much what it says on the package. They're thin. So compared to a regular icing sheet, that's backwards. Compared to a regular icing sheet, premium thins are, what are they, Deb? About half the thickness, something like that. And if you look at it, you can see my template casting through the icing sheet. And what I love about this is you can create some really nice multi-layered designs, because most of the time when people print on an icing sheet, they want to stick it on a white cake. That way everything is bright and all the colors pop. But sometimes you want to do something a little more subdued. And I love using the premium thins for this because if I just put a very light coating of color on my cake and then apply the image over it, that underlying color casts through. So imagine like a sunshine cake, or not a sunshine cake, a sunset cake or something like that, and all the fun things you can do with that. So just thinking outside the box a little bit. And the great part about this technique is you don't have to be a blue owner to do this. You can do this with an edible paper printer just as easily, and that's why I'm doing it on an icing sheet. There we go. And something else I've learned a lot lately from printing on icing sheets is there's absolutely no need to tape it down or otherwise hold it down because the blue isn't moving very much at all. So it's perfectly fine just printing directly on the sheet on the glass print bed. So I take down my template like usual and I just lay my sheet on top of it. I had a customer call me the other day and say that they needed some edible printing done on the Quick, and I was able to knock it out in no time at all just from that. So, Debbie, have there been any questions or anything like that that I'm missing?
Yep. So David Myers, the wife of David Myers, Mrs. Myers, said she's using the Canon with edible ink on regular icing sheets. So will this be applicable? And the answer is
1000% absolutely.
yep. So just because we're showing something on a blue doesn't mean it can only be done on a blue. In many cases, that's the case, but not tonight. We try to make
Yes,
things available.
yes. I like showing my blue when I do lives because my blue is more interesting to look at than my face.
True.
Yeah, I own it. I own it. Plus, I love it whenever people who don't know the name of my blue, how it got its name. So that's always a fun sidebar conversation. Now, if you already know the answer, don't cheat and don't ruin it for others. But old Blue Eyes, I'm curious to know if anyone can guess where that name came from. Let's see, we're about a little better than halfway done now. So,
So
yes.
David, Donna
No,
noticed the
go ahead.
size of the Excel being huge. The bed, it's actually the size of a full sheet cake. So
Mm-hmm.
each blue, the bed size is different. The little blue is a quarter sheet, big blue is a half, and the XL is full. The mega is 30 by 40. That's just like 2 plus. So
Yeah. First time I saw a Mega Blue, I about fell out because I couldn't believe how big it was. It truly is mega.
and Donald Joyner got it. Of course, he would know.
Of course, Donald would get it. He's a man of class.
Yep, all blue eyes.
Yeah, I need to eventually find a black fedora because I don't remember Frank ever wearing a brown one.
Well, he could have, and the TV didn't show it well, you know?
That's possible.
All right. And Lisa Anderson said she loves the technical help that Stacey has provided.
Aw, thank you, Lisa.
And yeah, so Kathleen said Bing Crosby. This is before Donald got it. David Myers said Sinatra reference. Good job.
Awesome.
So they're getting it. They're getting it, man.
That's awesome.
So blue owners, remember I keep talking about, oh, something's coming, something's coming, something's coming.
It's coming.
We're at, it's like probably within a week. I have to start putting together the communication with you so you guys can figure it all out, like, and I can properly say everything. Nathaniel Avador, welcome. He's from Colombia.
Awesome.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Yeah.
So here's what my print looks like. It's just four very basic squares with just some Easter patterns that I pulled off of Creative Fabrica. I love going there for, especially for patterns. And the images were a lot larger whenever they started, and I just shrank them down. That way they would work better for this type of a project. So let me switch and show you what I'm doing here. So I've got my printed icing sheet. I'm just going to let it sit here for a few seconds while it dries. And let's talk about some of the other bits and bobs I'm going to be using. So I have some round cookie cutters. I like the steel ones from Atico. So I have a couple of different sizes of those. I have my 3D printed cutters that in the shape of eggs. Going to use a fondant smoother, even though there's no fondant on the table right now. And I have a pair of tweezers. Let's see, am I missing anything? Oh, two very important pieces. This down here is a silicon rolling mat or counter cover. I don't remember what it's called, but it's from the Cookie Countess. And I love this for rolling. I love it for working on fondant projects. When I'm working on sugar flowers, I love it too. And the whole idea behind this is, since this cutter is going to be used as a punch, it needs something that it can sink down into in order for the cutter to do its magic. And this mat from Cookie Countess ends up being just the right amount of give without being too much give. And it works really, really well. So this is a good excuse to skip arm day, because what I'm going to do is just set my cutter on top of here, and I'm going to stand up and I'm just going to punch it in. And that's what I'm using the fondant smoother for, is so I don't get another bruise on my wrist from whenever I was trying this before. And once I push down into it, if I hold this up to the camera, you'll notice that it has a really nice indentation. And I'm going to call that a feature, not a defect, because if you look at it from the side, it gives kind of a beveled edge around the sides of the cut. And sometimes, there we go. Sometimes I have to grab a knife just to get it started.
Hey, what
I'm
did you
just going to,
call that, Matt? I'm trying to find the link.
it's from the Cookie Countess, and I think she calls it the counter cover or something along that line. There we go.
Got it.
And I just very, very easily cut that out. And it's perfect for the procrastinator you know and love, being yourself, that you can very quickly just cut these out. Now, could I do this on a Cricut? Absolutely. I could do this on just about anything, a Silhouette Cameo, a Cricut, heck, even a Brother. But sometimes when you're in a hurry, you just find other ways of getting things done. So I got a couple of eggs right there. Let's go ahead and do a circle. Now, why would I do a circle? Well, I have an idea. What I want to do is, let's see, let's pick this one. We'll do this one. Now this is going to get a little interesting because this is a really big cutter. I think this is that's about a 3-inch cutter. And what I'm going to do is start pressing down into it. And I'm bearing down into this with all my upper body strength. No jokes. Sometimes the larger cutter doesn't work as well. Yeah, that one didn't work. So I'm going to pull out my secret weapon. I got a piece of Mexican foam here that I use for flowers. And sometimes having a little bit of extra give. Now watch that, because I'm doing this on a live, it's not going to work.
So you didn't try this before? You're just trying things randomly?
Oh, I did. I got one right here as a backup.
And the reason why that happens is that when he presses down, the weight is more distributed when you're using the larger cutters. The smaller ones, it's easy to get precise
Yep.
cuts because they're smaller.
Debbie, you're
What?
giving a physics lesson on a live. What is wrong with you?
I've hung around you quite a bit.
So now let me ask you a dumb question. Why did I just make this big honking disc?
Why did you make the big honking disc? Sorry.
Well, simple. Because I'm trying to up my game when it comes to making displays. So, yeah, boom, there you go. Make a cupcake doily.
Woo!
I know. Sometimes it's the simple things that make us happy in life. So, yeah, I can cut something like that out. I can even grab a different size cutter, do the same thing again. And the whole idea behind this is just experimenting and having fun. Now, I don't think I would use this technique with a star shape or something that has like a lot of edges to it, because that could act a little goofy. But if I had a metal cutter, that would work a lot better. So I did experiment with this technique on some other shapes of cutters that I had, and it seemed like the metal cutters worked the best on complicated shapes or on larger shapes like this. So something smaller, like maybe an inch, inch and a quarter and down, would work really, really well with the 3D printed cutter. But make sure you do it with one that you can reproduce very easily because it will start to wear and tear on the edge, especially if it has a super thin cutting blade on it. But these ones I made on Cookie CAD, and I just did the extra sharp blade so it would stack the blades, and it worked really, really well. So the whole idea behind it is you just keep on cutting until you're happy with what you got.
So Vivian is on, and
Oh my
Vivian,
God, Vivian.
oh my God, Vivian, she wanted to know if we have icing sheets that are A3 or larger. Our standard icing sheets, the regular premium one, not the thins, do come in A3. They don't come any bigger than that. If you need something bigger than that, and you can print it directly onto the product itself, like the cake, you can do that with a big blue for a half size or the XL for a full size. Oh my God, Vivian.
Poor, poor Vivian. That will be how she is known forever.
Mm-hmm.
So you should come to the See Me retreat. Get in on the shenanigans.
Yeah, so the reason why, well, many reasons why we know a lot of the people on here. A lot of the people on here, these are for the newbies. We have just, they've been on our lives for a long time, but a lot of the people on here went to the See Me retreat, which happens in January. There is a summer version, but the January is the bigger one. And we really got to know each other very well. And it's a very, like, it's probably the best event I've ever been to. And I've
Mhm.
gone to a lot of things because I've been around for a long time. But then we get to know each other very, very well. We share ideas, and then there's the actual retreat itself, which is a lot of fun because you learn some amazing techniques. So I always talk about it. It is going to sell out because most people are coming back and they do limit it. So when they start talking about it, you want to jump on it. We'll start talking about it. I don't know when they're going to announce that the tickets are up, but everybody who's been before gets to come. You are the first that get to sign up, and then there's a limited number of seats left, and you got to act quick. But it's the
Mhm.
best event, and it's in Florida
Yes,
at a cool
it's
hotel.
amazing.
Yeah.
At a very cool hotel, especially if you're into that mid-century modern look from I Dream a Genie, like that time period. The whole hotel is themed that way. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's in Cocoa Beach, so makes sense.
Yep.
So
So awesome. So the reason why I grabbed a pair of tweezers is when you're working with something thinner, like a premium thin icing sheet, if you just grab it by your fingers and try to place it in the icing, it might try to bend. So I find that using a pair of tweezers works a lot better. So I just grab the cupcake and the tweezers and I just kind of give it a little shove. Oops. And there it goes. And then I can position it with my fingers to get it a little bit nicer. And I'm doing this from behind. So of course this is gonna be interesting what it ends up looking like. And then I just start dotting them in here. And like I said before, it does not have to be Easter themed. This can work for anything you want. And you can even use the same technique when working with fondant. So like just roll out a piece of fondant, place your cutout images on it. So if you wanted to do something a little bit thicker, just take a piece of fondant, roll it out, place these on top, and then cut them out a second time. And that would give you an edible print on top of your fondant. And then I would just stick the two together using with fondant, it's pretty sticky if you just add water. But if you need to be even stickier, a little bit of piping gel thinned out with water or a little bit of Little Honey's glue will work really well for that.
what's
And yeah,
Little Honey's glue?
it's an edible glue from Icing Images.
Woo!
Yeah. So, oh, one other thing I forgot to mention about the mat. I'm doing this on the back side of the mat. So when you get it, it comes rolled up. And whenever you unroll it, it will naturally want to roll itself back up. So when I lay it down on my counter, I put the side that wants to roll up on itself underside. And that's what I call the top. and the side that wants to roll in on itself, I call that the underside. So I'm doing this on the underside that way in case like one of my metal cutters does do any damage to this, it's not going to damage the side that I do my dough rolling on.
All right. Kelly wants to know, how about I come meet you in October in Toronto?
Ooh, yes,
Yeah.
that's exciting. What are we doing in October, Deb?
We are going to the Toronto Cake Show. That's not what it's called. I will get the link for you. It's the international show created by Susan Trianos, and it's totally amazing. It was here before COVID, and now it's finally coming back. And it is all about anything having to do with baking, kitchen, decorating, everything in the world. They got the big flour companies and sugar companies being sponsors of this thing. It's over the top. I will get the link in just a second. But in the meantime, Catherine, Crystal said it, Little Honeys is the best glue she's tried, and she's tried too many to count. Catherine wants to know if you can make these ahead, or do you have to use them right away?
Nope, 100% make them ahead. And before I finish answering that question, the Toronto Cake Show is also going to be very nerdy because a certain person that's on this live is going to be one of their instructors teaching how to do nerdy stuff.
Yes, and it's actually called the Canadian Baking and Sweets Show.
Yes. So to
And
get back to the question that Kathy was asking, that was right. Kathy, correct?
Kathleen,
Oh, Kathleen, I'm
yeah,
sorry. I, I'm
you should
terrible at
be.
names, but I do try to get them right. So with an icing sheet that I'm going to stick on a cake, normally I would want to stick that on as fresh as possible once the ink is finished drying. But for something like this, there's something to be said about letting it dry out more because then it will become a little bit more crispy. So if I want to make this a little bit more crispy and a little bit more delicate, like a royal icing transfer would be, or an actual commercially made sprinkle, I would throw this in my dehydrator at 95 degrees Fahrenheit for maybe an hour, 90 minutes or so. That'll dry it out. And that got me thinking, if you have a piece of crate foam, here it is. If you had a piece of crate foam, let's say that you cut these out in the shape of a leaf. So let me see here. Maybe I can make this more leaf-like. This is the part of lives that I love because then you just start experimenting and seeing what you come up with. So this is going to look maybe a little bit more like a palm leaf or something a little, something a bit more tropical, but you'll get the idea. So I'll come through here and I'll just cut out a couple edges. Although I'm pretty sure I've never seen palm leaf quite this color. But hey, it's the thought that counts, right? That's the idea. You get out of there. And you get out of there. All right. So I have these little pieces of crate foam that I cut to be the same size as the trays in my dehydrator. And I'll just give that a little squish in there like that. And because icing sheets are fairly flexible, unlike wafer paper, you can do stuff like this where you just kind of give it a little bit of a nudge, maybe even reach in there with a ball tool. And that will give it a little bit of a curl like that. I know that's probably going to be hard to see on camera. I feel like I'm holding a contact lens. Oh, edible contacts. That's a new idea.
You need to kind of tilt it at an angle, and then we'll see it.
Let's try that again. The thing is, I'm trying to not let it blow away either because it's so thin and
There you
light.
go. Yeah,
There we
exactly
go.
what you're doing now by moving it that way.
Yep. So I just cupped it a little bit to give it some look. And then I would just take this entire thing, put it in my dehydrator for an hour, maybe 90 minutes or so. And then that will help crisp that up and hold its shape. And then you could make some extraordinarily thin and light leaves to decorate a cake or a cupcake or a cookie, or add them to a flour spray that you made out of sugar. And compare that to, let's see, where it was here an hour ago. I must have moved it somewhere else to get it out of the way. Of course, that's why I need it, because I moved it out of the way. But let's compare that to a sugar leaf that I made, and you can very easily see how much thinner the icing sheet is. And again, these are the premium thins, not the regular premium icing sheets, and you can see how much thinner that is, even though this is a super thin sugar leaf. And it's just another option on how to, use different products in different ways. And we're always really big on, when you're done with something, don't throw it away, because you can use this for something else. So like making snow or sand or something like that. You can use these extra little bits that are left over to do projects like this.
Yep, always save your scraps. Okay, we have some
Always save your
questions, and I have
scraps.
some questions too. Let's see. Kate, who is actually in Bali and not Australia, do you take the plastic backing off the icing sheet before you cut the image?
You know what? I did not. So since the question has been
Oh,
asked, the question must be answered.
it's going to
So
work better. I took it off.
let's try it.
Good question, Kate. Good question.
Let's see what happens. Here we go. All right, let's try it with the big egg. Wow. All right. Kate wins the prize.
Yep,
That punched
I
out with
thought you
almost no
were.
effort whatsoever. So now I want to try it with one of my circle cutters. Let's see.
And you
Check
said
that out.
pressure was lower.
I'm sorry.
You just used a lot less pressure.
Yeah, I sure did. I can feel it in my hand. So yeah, and that cut out a lot nicer, even whenever you look at the edges. So the large one is the one that I did on the acetate. This one's the one I did not do on the acetate. And I can easily see that the edges are much more cleaner. So
Yep.
awesome. Thank you, Kate. That was a great idea.
Yep. And we have another question. What is the difference between an icing sheet and wafer paper? And while you're talking about it, add in the smart sheet as well.
Sure. So icing sheets, whether it's premium or premium thins, and wafer paper and smart sheets all have one thing in common, or two things in common. One, they're all edible products, so you can apply them to a food product, and if you printed on them with edible ink, they're safe to eat. And the uh, that's really the main similarity between all of them. Now the difference is application. So an icing sheet is kind of like the, not exactly the OG, that would be wafer paper, but icing sheet I feel is an upgrade from wafer paper in that it is much more pliable and much more resistant. So this is an icing sheet. If I take it and I crumble it up, sure, it tore a little bit where it was already cut up, but it resisted that much more easily. But if I reach down here and grab a sheet of wafer paper, oh, hey, look, I have some smart sheets too.
Do you have regular icing sheets there by chance?
Of course I do, Deb. You know that. There we go. That's a piece of wafer paper. All right. So those of you who work with wafer paper a lot, look the other way. You're not going to like what I'm about to do. So here's a piece of wafer paper. If I crinkle it up like that, it just is utterly destroyed. Utterly destroyed. It has no resistance whatsoever. Now, wafer paper is a lot lighter weight wise compared to a premium icing sheet. But let's see here. If I,
And also the dryer, the dryer, he's in Florida, so it's a little humid
Mhm.
there. the drier the environment, the more you're going to see that wafer paper kind of totally crack apart into, or crumble, I should say. That's a better adjective for it.
Yep.
It also
And
doesn't do well going in and out of the refrigerator, but it's really good if you want something that's light to create a shape with that would stand off a cake or a cookie or a cupcake. That's what it's
yes.
really, really good at.
Yes. And unfortunately, I think my bottle of paper potion is in the other room I do my decorating in, so I'm sorry. I'll have to go grab that if I needed to. But one thing I can do with wafer paper very easily is tear it up like this. And then here's some of Little Honey's glue. It just takes a very tiny little amount. I don't even know if you can, yeah, you can just barely see the shine of that glue. And you can quickly build up wafer paper flour just with a few drips of the Little Honey's glue. Like, granted, I know this isn't really a flower, but I wasn't planning on doing that. But hey, it's a fantasy flower, whatever. Okay, I'm throwing that away now.
Now, the paper potion that you are after, that does, it's a product sold by Icing Images. It's our product. We created it. And you spray it on lightly, and it basically will soften the edible paper. It will even soften icing sheets. So if they start to dry out too much, it softens the smart sheets. It's automatically, like when you hit it with the paper potion, you'll see it automatically go limp, for lack of a better word. I'm glad Julie is not on right now. And then the wafer paper, that's really what it was originally designed for, because wafer paper is so brittle. It would keep it soft so you can move it around and have more opportunity to work it. And there it is. That's an older bottle.
I don't care. It still
So
works.
I know. I just noticed the label. It also smells really yummy. It's got a great vanilla smell. So some people actually spray their cake boxes with it.
I do
And
that.
yeah, so when you're delivering it, it's like, oh, this smells awesome. So yes, Crystal, that answered your statement. Thank you for that.
It smells like paper potion in here.
Paper
Darn it.
potion. I'll put the link up, Shannon.
All right. So what I was doing with that paper potion is I'm in Florida here, and today my humidity is at 52% inside. So if you're in a drier climate, it might take 2 sprays, but typically for me, 1 spray is all it takes. And then I just kind of wave it around a little bit so it dries off. And now look at the difference. I can very easily position this and curl it. In fact, if I grab my block of Mexican foam again, I can even start to curl the paper a little bit and it won't crack because the paper potion conditions it. Now, if I compare that to this side that I did not put the paper potion on, it instantly tore it open. So yeah, you can do all kinds of amazing things with paper potion because it just gives new life to wafer paper. And then the last paper that you were asking about was the Smart Sheet. So Smart Sheet is a really fun piece of edible paper. Uh, I like to think of it as a edible construction paper because it's much thicker than a regular icing sheet. In fact, let me grab a piece of it right now. Here we go.
And
So the first thing you'll notice with a Smart Sheet is that there is no acetate backing to it. So what this means is it's a two-sided edible paper. You can see how flexible it is. It's more flexible than wafer paper, but not quite as flexible as an icing sheet. The handoff for that is you have two sides that you can work with. This side here is textured. So if I just let the shadows hit it right, you can see there's a texture to it. Whereas on this side, it's very smooth, very shiny, and that gives you two different options on how you print. So when I print on the smooth side, I call this my high definition edible paper whenever I'm talking to clients about it, because it's so shiny that it prints very similar to photo paper in a desktop inkjet. If I want to do something a little bit more creative, I'll flop over to the textured side here, and I can use this as a paint palette. Like whenever I'm mixing up colors, use it as an airbrush canvas. So I have some really nice airbrush projects that I've done before on this. Oh, what else have I done with Smart Sheets? Oh, embossing.
Your old
Hmm?
PYO. PYO.
PYO? Absolutely. So PYO palettes, you just you can print the dots on the bottom, and whenever you dip into it with a damp paintbrush, it'll pick up that color, and then you can paint with it. So that's a fun cookie idea. And I really enjoy doing embossing with it. So again, I would take the paper potion, give this sheet a couple of sprays, let it dry for a few minutes, and then I'll run it through a Sizzix Big Shot with a I think they no, the thinlits are the cutters, but this also works really well with the thinlit cutters. But the embossing folders, that's the word, embossing folders, and it will just perfectly pick up that texture.
Mrs. Myers wants to know if the Smart Sheets will work on the Cricut.
100% yes. So the difference with that is I don't think I have one here. Oh, well, no,
Surprise, surprise.
I don't have one here. But yes, you can use it with a Cricut. The difference is you would need the food safe cutting mat from Icing Images. And then what you do is if you just pretend that this is the food safe cutting mat from Icing Images, the difference is it doesn't have to have a cover because there is no sticky, because the sticky part is not food safe. And not to mention, you would never get this off of here anyway. It would just stick to it like glue, literally, because it is glue. Uh-huh. And what I do is I take a little bit of shortening. It doesn't have to be high ratio. It can just be regular Crisco, Trex, whatever. And I spread a really thin layer on top of it. And then I go over it with a paper towel just to put a swirl pattern. And then either wafer paper or Smart Sheets, I just lay it down on there and I use a braying tool to smooth it out. And then I just cut right on it right there. And if you go to my website, edibletechguru.com, at the top, or if you're on a mobile device, it's in the 3-line menu on the right-hand side, go to free tutorials. And there's a live that I did with Debbie maybe 2 years ago now, where we talked about how to cut things like this using a Cricut.
It's not time to do that again. Somebody was asking about that. I told her to contact you directly just because
Okay.
we're not doing that tonight.
Yeah, we
All
can
right,
do that
keep
again.
going because I got questions for you. So you're going to show the difference between the thins and the premium.
Oh, yes, you did ask about that, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
All right. Well, aren't you glad that I happen to have a pack of premiums right here?
Now, with the thins, as far as using them, like all of our edible papers, you can print on every single one of them, but everybody has a preference. There's no right one or wrong one. I wouldn't use wafer paper for putting it on a cake. It's too thin, and it can melt. But we have other edible papers such as the cello sheets, which are completely thin. Completely clear. They're kind of like a sticker feeling to it, that
Yep.
plasticky. And we got the semi-transfer sheets, which is great for isomalt. I'm forgetting one, I think. Oh, Flex Frost, which is an edible lace, edible paper that you can print on as well. But
Ooh.
it worked with because the backing's not on.
Because Kate is smarter than I am. That's why. Look at
Right,
that.
right.
Wait, what?
I was agreeing with you. I was giving Kate.
Yeah. So here is, so the printed one is the premium thin that we started at the beginning with, and the not printed one is the premium icing sheet. And that's,
There you go. Wait, hold it right there. Stop. Perfect. Don't move. Everybody see it? The thin is on the left and the thick is on the right towards the Icing Images logo.
yeah.
Ooh.
Just
Good, good, good.
I was going to say screenshot it now because my hands don't do this for very long before they start to shake.
Yeah, we have, I think there's a picture of it on our site showing the differences as well.
I think there is.
Yeah.
But yeah, comparatively, if I, let's see here, I can't show you that. That's my grand finale. All right. So here is a printed paper. Boom. Here is a thin. Let me just cut a little piece out.
The taste difference is the same. They all have the icing sheets, whether it's thin or standard, is the same. They taste really good. They have a slight vanilla taste. Um, Smart sheets have no taste because there is no sugar in them at all. Wafer paper has a vanilla taste as well. So it's either vanilla or nothing when it comes to us. Nothing tastes gross though when that comes from us because that's the first thing I do when I'm looking at a product, putting it in my mouth. That's the one way you can kill me. Say new product and I'll taste it.
I ain't touching that. So this image over here, or I'm sorry, this sample over here is the premium thin, and this sample over here with the cutout is the premium. And what I'm trying to show you here is you can see how little of the underlying image casts through the premium icing sheet in comparison to the premium thin.
Yeah, you're not picking it up well on this. I can't see the difference.
Eh, I'm trying. The lighting,
You
I
can
wasn't expecting to
you're,
do this, so the lighting isn't cooperating.
yeah, you can see it in person. There is a definite difference. The clear paper, Shannon, is a cello sheet. I'll get that link
Hmm.
for you. It's
Yeah.
really cool. Really
Yeah,
cool.
I use cello sheets for doing stained glass window work using isomalt. And Sydney Galpern has done a few tutorials on, I think I saw it on her Instagram yesterday or today, where she was doing stained glass, and it's her work is amazing. It's absolutely stunning.
All right, we have questions. Sue asked a question a while ago, and I missed it 20 minutes ago. She's probably like, "Come on, Deb."
Oh,
Um, do you? Well, I'm watching two. Like, I have to look at two conversations plus you. So, do you find the transfers softening up from being placed in the buttercream? Do you print at a lower saturation to minimize any bleed worries? Very good question, Sue
very, very good
Hollinger.
question. So as far as saturation goes, nope, I crank it up. I print my icing sheets at a much higher saturation because the icing sheets will more readily absorb moisture when compared to other mediums such as royal icing or buttercream. In fact, here's a good experiment we can do. I'm going to take this piece of premium icing sheet and I'm going to spray it pretty heavily.
Now, Sue has a big blue, remember, too, and whereas others will have the regular edible paper printers. So you're going to have to answer both.
Yep. So you can see here that I definitely put quite a bit on there because you can see it dripping off. And what we're going to do is just let this hang out for a little bit and see if it dissolves. Now, if I do this to wafer paper, it will most assuredly dissolve. No questions asked. But the whole point of this experiment is to show you that the icing sheet can tolerate a lot more moisture in comparison to other things. So when working with premium icing sheets and an edible paper printer, I recommend only using standard quality. Don't go to high quality because it's not so much that the paper will bleed. It's more that the ink won't have time to dry before it goes through the rollers and you can create roller tracks. So if your pages are coming out of the printer, hey, I got a prop, why don't I use it? So if your page is coming out of the printer, remember clear tab goes in first, and you see these lines that look like marching ants going down the length of the paper, that
Track
means
marks.
the,
They're much better tracking marks rather than ants.
well, whatever. They look like marching ants to me. Leave me alone. Uh, but if you see those going down the length of your paper, that means that the ink was still too wet when it was going through the printer, and the spokes on the rollers are picking up that little bit of ink and then tracking it as it goes. So if
The
you
ink.
have that happening with an edible paper printer a lot, turn down your quality from high quality or photo quality down to standard, and that will make that go away with time.
Okay, I need to
So,
clarify something. So there's two different things you look at when you're printing with an edible paper printer. One is the paper type, which we recommend using a matte, and the
yep.
other is the quality. And the quality you can switch around between standard and high resolution. A high resolution is too much ink, no matter
Hmm.
what you're printing on. So don't do that. But try to leave it on the standard. Um, so yeah, so I just kind of wanted to say that because that's where a lot of people are questioning this is happening or that is happening, etc. So
Hmm. Yep.
um, okay, all right. I
So yeah,
have another question. Are you
coming
ready for another question? You have
coming
more.
back to that sample of the icing sheet that I put way too much paper potion on. I put on 5 sprays of paper potion. You can see it starting to evaporate a little bit here, and the page or the premium icing sheet is still holding up. It's just barely starting to tear from being oversaturated. So that's just to show you how tolerant icing sheets are to saturation. So if you're printing on a big blue where you don't have to worry about the printer touching the product because the print head floats above as the print head floats above what you're printing on, you can really tune up your saturation level when you're printing on icing sheets.
And as you said, if he does that to wafer, it will just drown it pretty much.
Hmm.
And paper potion, so you know, there is no water in it at all, and there is no alcohol in it. It's a very
Nope.
unique formula.
It, it's
Vivian
it's
wants,
liquid fairy dust.
yes, it is. Um, Vivian wants to know if the smart sheets are good for flowers.
Flowers, absolutely. I
Yep.
have not made flowers. Well, no, that's not true. I have made flowers to smart sheets. I would run them through on the Sizzix and cut them out on the thinlits that look like fantasy flowers and then curl them.
Yeah. All right. And if you're looking for a tutorial with that, Jennifer, oh, I just talked to her today too. She lives in town. I'll look at my text because I just talked to her.
Oh, Jennifer
Um,
Frey?
Thank you, Fry. Jennifer Fry.
Fry,
Um,
that's it.
yeah. Jennifer Fry did one, so you can Google it on our YouTube page. Facebook's going to do away with all these saved videos, so all of them are on our YouTube page, and you'll be able to find it pretty easily. All right, and let's see. Crystal says Flex Frost makes the most incredible edible flag for their military clients.
Oh,
Okay.
yes. Because Flex
Oh,
Frost
yeah.
it's like an edible fabric. I like making decorative bows with Flex Frost. I'll print a pattern over a sheet very similar to what I did with this, and then I run it through my Cricut to cut out the shape of a bow, and then I just basically pull the two ends together, use a dot of little honeys to stick them together, and then I wrap another piece around it, and it's done. I can make a bow in just a couple minutes with Flex Frost.
Yep, it's awesome, and it makes like amazing lace. So it's like a
Hmm.
good twofer type of thing you can have. You can always lay it on a cake flat, but it's a more expensive sheet to do that with. You want to
Hmm.
use it more for making flags and things like that, that drape cloth type things, bows, ribbons, or you also can use it for edible lace. That's extremely easy to do.
Hmm.
So
Now,
go ahead.
there is one case that I could justify the additional expense of a Flex Frost sheet when it's being laid flat on a cake with Flex Frost Pearl and Flex Frost
Oh, yeah.
Gold.
Say that three times fast.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I barely said it one time slow. Flex Frost Pearl has a nice pearlescent sheen to it. It's very similar to hitting a printed icing sheet with luster dust. or a pearl spray, but it's already built right into the sheet. So you don't have to worry about spraying on top of a printed image, causing the image to bleed.
And I'm putting up links, guys. All right. Flex Frost. Okay. All right. Let's go to your grand finale. Ooh, grand finale. And I have a grand finale too. Ha! You
Yeah.
didn't know that.
No, I did not. So
Mm-mm.
what I got here is a cupcake. So this is a cupcake that's in a paper cupcake case like you would normally have. And I have a tulip paper. It had a little accident today. Don't judge it. His feelings are hurt.
Everybody judge it.
Yes, judge it harshly. So in this tulip cup, there's a little surprise inside. So whenever you take the cupcake out of it, what do you know? Print your logo on an icing sheet, cut it out, and then
Woo!
stick it to the bottom of the cupcake wrapper. That way, whenever the people are done eating it, they see your company name.
Yep.
And
Beautiful.
that's why I said don't waste your unused sheets. So we got this sheet here, and I'm sure someone was screaming at me like, "No, no, no! Why didn't you stick something in there?" Well, well, look at me. Look at me, my big brain. I did.
Well,
So on this one, I just stuck a couple copies of my cake logo in the dead space that would have been wasted, and I cut it out and I used it on the bottom there. Now, I'm not done not wasting this yet. How about double negative? That shows you how important it is. I will then, now I'm not going to do this because this is definitely not a food safe presentation, but I'll then take these little strips right here and I stick them in a zippy bag and I save them for later. And don't laugh at me, I'm in Florida. During winter
everybody,
season, when I do winter themed cakes, I'll take this and like a small spoonful of luster dust, stick it in a coffee grinder, whiz it up, and I get edible snow that I can use to decorate things with.
awesome. And you can make sand if you're in Florida too.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Just add a little bit of brown luster dust or brown petal dust and maybe like one tiny drop of brown gel coloring. But a lot of the time I will, oh, actually, no, I do remember that now. I used wafer paper. I took wafer paper and blended it with brown sugar to make sand.
Awesome.